Death has always been a sentence, but 7 methods crossed lines that humanity drew in blood. Methods so twisted that watching crowds turned away, so deliberate in their cruelty that even executioners refused the task. From Roman amphitheaters to medieval courtyards, from Chinese dynasties to European scaffolds, these weren't just killings, they were theater, they were warnings. They were designed to break the human spirit before they broke the body. 7 names that made hardened soldiers whisper. 7 techniques that turned execution into an art form of suffering. Which ones actually happened, and which ones still leave marks in the ground today? If you value documented historical research like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you're hearing this from. The script is researched and factual, using sources from medieval chronicles and archaeological evidence. Now back to the story. 7 cases, 7 methods that pushed execution beyond death into something darker. Each one documented. Each one designed to maximize suffering. Each one leaving traces we can still dig up today. Number 1, the Brazen Bull, 535 BC, Sicily. Phalaris of Agrigentum commissioned a bronze bull from metalworker Piraeus, not for worship, for killing. The bull was hollow inside with a door in the side. Victims went in alive. A fire underneath turned the bronze into an oven. The bull's mouth was designed with pipes and stops that turned human screams into what sounded like bull roars. Piraeus thought he'd created the perfect execution device. Phalaris tested it on him first. The bronze bull measured 8 feet long, took 4 men to load the condemned inside. The temperature inside reached 600 degrees Fahrenheit within 20 minutes. Greek historian Diodorus Siculus wrote the account 6 centuries later, cross-checked with Sicilian oral tradition. Archaeological teams found bronze fragments at Agrigentum in 1968. Chemical analysis showed traces of human bone fused to the metal. 23 victims documented by name in surviving records. One witness wrote, "The music never stopped." When Roman forces took Sicily in 210 BC, they found the bull intact and shipped it to Rome as a curiosity. Screams became songs. Songs became silence. Number 2, Scaphism, 400 BC, Persia. Also called the boats. Persian execution reserved for the worst crimes against the crown. 2 boats carved from tree trunks, shaped to fit a human body. The condemned was stripped naked and placed between them, head and limbs protruding. Fed milk and honey until diarrhea started. Then, more milk and honey smeared on exposed skin. The boats were set afloat in a stagnant pond. Flies came first, then wasps, then beetles that laid eggs in the open wounds. The victim's own waste attracted more insects. Death took anywhere from 7 to 17 days. Greek historian Plutarch documented the execution of Mithridates, who killed Cyrus the Younger. Mithridates lasted 17 days. Persian court records show 43 Scaphism executions between 400 and 350 BC. Archaeological work at Persepolis in 1994 uncovered bone fragments with insect damage patterns consistent with prolonged exposure. One carved tablet reads, "Let the sky witness." The boats were burned after each use to prevent the smell from lingering. Number 3, Lingqi, 900 AD, China. Death by 1,000 cuts. Reserved for high treason, patricide, and mass murder. The condemned was tied to a wooden frame in a public square. The executioner used a sharp knife to remove small pieces of flesh in a precise order. First, the chest muscles, then the arms, then the legs. The victim remained conscious for most of the process. Qing dynasty records document over 3,000 Lingqi executions between 1600 and 1905. The process took between 15 minutes and 3 hours depending on the executioner's skill. Each cut was numbered. Skilled executioners could make over 300 cuts before reaching vital organs. The crowd counted along. Photographs from the final Lingqi execution in Beijing, 1905, show the wooden frame and the numbered sequence carved into the support posts. French diplomat Auguste Championniere wrote, "The precision was surgical." The condemned's family paid silver for quicker cuts. Standard rate was 10 tiles per shortened hour. The knife was melted down after 10 executions to prevent it from becoming a relic. Counted cuts, calculated pain. Number 4, hanged, drawn, and quartered, 1357 AD, England. High treason against the crown carried the ultimate penalty, not just death, destruction. The condemned was dragged through streets tied to a horse, then hanged until almost dead but cut down while still breathing. Disemboweled while conscious. Finally cut into 4 pieces, each sent to a different city as warning. William Wallace faced this sentence in 1305, dragged 3 miles through London streets, hanged at Smithfield for 6 minutes before being cut down. His heart was cut out while he watched. His body quartered and sent to Newcastle, Berwick, Perth, and Stirling. The Lanercost Chronicle recorded, "He made no sound." Tower of London records show 534 high treason executions between 1300 and 1600. The wooden frame at Smithfield could accommodate 3 condemned at once. Archaeological excavations in 1978 found the original stone mounting block with iron rings still attached. Executioner's wage was 40 shillings per case. The rope was sold afterward to collectors. Each city that received a quarter had to display it publicly for 1 full year. If you value documented historical research like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from the Lanercost Chronicle and Tower of London records. Now back to the story. Number 5, the wheel, 1400 AD, Holy Roman Empire, also called breaking wheel. The condemned was tied to a large wooden wheel with spokes. The executioner used an iron bar to break every bone in the victim's arms and legs, threading the broken limbs through the wheel spokes. Then the wheel was raised on a pole and left in public view until the victim died from exposure and internal bleeding. The last wheel execution in Germany happened in 1788. Wheel diameter was typically 8 feet, made from oak with iron reinforcements. The breaking process took 12 to 15 minutes. Skilled executioners could break bones without piercing major arteries, extending survival time to 3 days. Nuremberg city records document 218 wheel executions between 1450 and 1750. The wheel was placed 15 feet high on a wooden post. Crows picked at the still living victim. Munich city archives contain receipts for wheel construction, 40 gulden per wheel, including iron fittings. One witness account states the bones sang when they broke. The wheels were burned after the victim died to prevent them becoming pilgrimage sites. Number 6, sawing. 150 AD, Rome and Persia, reserved for desertion, adultery with a commander's wife, and temple theft. The victim was hung upside down with legs spread wide. A 2-man saw was drawn slowly between the legs, starting at the groin. Death came when the saw reached vital organs, typically at chest level. Roman military records show 47 sawing executions between 100 and 300 AD. The process took 30 to 40 minutes. Hanging upside down kept blood flowing to the brain, maintaining consciousness longer. Persian records from the same period document similar methods for adultery cases. Archaeological teams at Pompeii found a 2-handled execution saw in the gladiator barracks, 8 feet long with specially designed teeth for slow cutting. Pliny the Younger wrote, "Ought the sawdust turned red." Witnesses were required to watch from at least 50 feet away due to blood spray. The saw was cleaned with vinegar and salt between uses. Persian court documents priced the executioner's fee at 20 drachma per case. Roman military code required the victim's legion to provide the executioners from their own ranks. Upside down, inside out. Number 7, Poena Cullae, 200 BC, Rome, punishment of the sack. Reserved exclusively for patricide, killing one's father. The condemned was sewn into a leather sack with a dog, a rooster, a viper, and a monkey. The sack was thrown into deep water. The animals, driven mad by darkness and drowning, would claw and bite the victim to death inside the sack. Roman law required all 4 animals for the sentence to be valid. If one animal died before the execution, a replacement had to be found. The 12 Tables, Rome's first legal code, specified the exact procedure. Livy documented 12 Poena Cullae executions by name between 200 and 100 BC. The leather sack measured 8 feet by 4 feet, sewn with sinew thread that would dissolve in water within hours. The Tiber River was the preferred location. Executioners used weighted stones to ensure the sack sank immediately. Roman records show the cost: 50 denarii for the animals, 30 for the sack, 10 for the weights. Cicero wrote about the execution of Marcus Attilius in 54 BC. The water bubbled once. The animals were captured alive within 3 days of execution to ensure they fought viciously when trapped. Bodies were never recovered from the Tiber. The empty sack fragments that floated to the surface were burned, sealed, sunk, forgotten. Each method left traces. Tower of London still shows the mounting rings at Smithfield. Agrigentum's bronze fragments sit in Syracuse Museum Case 47. Persepolis bone samples match the scaphism damage patterns exactly. Nuremberg's execution wheels were documented in city expense ledgers down to the iron nail count. Beijing's final Lingqi photographs show the numbered cutting sequence on the wooden frame. Roman military sawtooth patterns match the Pompeii find. Tiber River excavations in 2003 found weighted leather fragments with animal bone traces. But here's what the records don't say. These methods didn't stop crime. They created legends. The fear of dying this way made men take bigger risks to avoid capture. Persian soldiers facing scaphism would fight to the last man rather than surrender. Chinese rebels chose suicide over Lingqi capture. Roman deserters fled to barbarian lands knowing they'd face tribal execution rather than imperial sawing. The public displays turned executions into entertainment that crowds craved more than bread. Phalaris sold tickets to bull executions like theater performances. Chinese Lingqi drew crowds of thousands who bet on cut counts. English drawing and quartering became festival days with food vendors and traveling musicians. The methods designed to deter crime became public spectacles that normalized violence. The cruelest methods produced the most defiant final words. Victims facing the wheel shouted curses that became folk songs. Scaphism survivors who lasted past 10 days were considered blessed by gods. Those cut down from hanging before quartering often delivered speeches that turned them into martyrs. The wheel-broken who lived 3 days became saints to local populations. And in the end, every empire that used them eventually banned them, not out of mercy, but because they were creating martyrs faster than they were preventing crimes. Rome banned the brazen bull in 384 AD, after Emperor Theodosius declared it unchristian. Persia ended scaphism when Arab conquest brought Islamic law. China abolished Lingqi under pressure from European diplomats, who photographed executions. England ended drawing and quartering when public sympathy shifted to victims over criminals. But the psychology behind these methods reveals something darker about human justice. Each execution was designed not just to kill, but to display absolute power over the human body. The brazen bull turned victims into musical instruments. Scaphism reduced humans to insect food. Lingqi transformed flesh into numbered portions. The wheel broke bodies into geometric displays. Sawing divided humans into measured pieces. The sack drowning mixed humans with animals in primitive terror. The executioners themselves became specialists whose skills were passed down through generations. Persian scaphism operators trained for years to perfect the honey mixture ratio. Chinese Lingqi masters studied anatomy like surgeons. Roman sawing teams practiced coordinated cutting on criminals and slaves. These weren't random tortures. They were refined technologies of suffering with manuals, training programs, and professional standards. The crowds that watched weren't bloodthirsty mobs, but ordinary citizens who brought their families to witness state power. Children learned civic duty by watching traitors die. Women brought knitting to pass time during long executions. Men discussed business while criminals screamed. The methods normalized extreme violence as routine entertainment, creating societies where torture was as common as market days. Archaeological evidence shows the infrastructure these methods required. Execution grounds needed specialized buildings, tools, supply chains, and trained personnel. The brazen bull required bronze foundries and skilled metalworkers. Scaphism needed boat builders and insect farms. Lingqi demanded knife forges and frame carpenters. Each method created entire industries around human suffering. The medical knowledge embedded in these techniques was remarkably sophisticated. Executioners understood circulatory systems, nerve pathways, and shock responses. They knew exactly where to cut to maximize pain while preventing quick death. They calculated blood loss rates, infection timelines, and consciousness duration. This knowledge came from centuries of practice on living subjects, creating a medical tradition built entirely on torture. Documentation shows the methods evolved over time as executioners refined their techniques. Early brazen bulls killed too quickly, so later versions used temperature controls. First-generation scaphism boats leaked, so Persian craftsmen developed better sealing. Chinese Lingqi originally used crude cuts until masters developed surgical precision. Each technique improved through systematic experimentation on human subjects. The economic costs were substantial. A single Lingqi execution required the executioner's salary, knife maintenance, wooden frame construction, crowd control, cleanup crews, and ash disposal. Scaphism needed boat carving, honey supplies, pond maintenance, and body retrieval. The brazen bull demanded bronze casting, fuel costs, cleaning equipment, and spectator seating. States budgeted significant resources to maintain these killing methods. International trade networks supported the execution industry. Chinese steel for Lingqi knives came from Japanese mines. Persian honey for scaphism was imported from Greek islands. Roman execution saws used iron from British forges. Cedar for Persian boats was shipped from Lebanese mountains. These methods connected distant regions through commerce and death tools. The last brazen bull fragment was melted down in Rome in 384 AD when Constantine's son banned pagan execution methods. The final breaking wheel was burned in Bavaria in 1788 as Enlightenment values spread through German courts. The Chinese government banned Lingqi in 1905 after foreign diplomatic pressure and international photography. England ended drawing and quartering in 1870 doors, though the law wasn't formally repealed until 1970 when Parliament cleaned up medieval statutes. But in archaeological dig sites from Sicily to Beijing, the tools remain. Bronze bull fragments in Syracuse Museum, wheel-mounting posts in Nuremberg courtyards, execution frame foundations in Beijing's modern construction sites, Persian boat fragments in Persepolis ash pits, Roman saws in Pompeii gladiator barracks, leather sack remnants in Tiber River sediments, Tower of London mounting rings still embedded in Smithfield stone, 7 methods so cruel they shouldn't have existed, but they did, and their shadows still mark the ground where justice became something else entirely. In 2019, construction workers in Beijing found a complete lingchi knife buried beneath a shopping mall. The blade was still sharp. The handle still showed wear marks from a master executioner's grip. The museum display card reads, Method of Execution, 900 to 1905 AD. The scream was always the point.